Brian Cook has been a club chief executive since the VFL became the AFL in 1990. Not another soul can lay claim to the same achievement. Welcome, Brian.
Thanks, Mick.
26 consecutive years as CEO of West Coast and Geelong, and 20 finals campaigns in that time, and perhaps another one this year.
Yeah, I guess I've been a bit lucky.
Have you really? Modesty doesn't become you, Cookie. You can't be lucky. Along the way, there's been 5 premierships. You don't fluke those.
No, you probably don't. You might fluke 1, you might fluke 2 maybe, but you won't fluke 5. I think I've been part of a very good team in 2 good clubs.
We're going to return to the footy, but I want to ask you about your personal life. I find that really intriguing. It was generally traumatic, and it's a compelling story to me.
Yeah.
Let's start at the beginning. You're born in Scotland?
Born in Peebles, brought up near Glasgow.
Both your parents are Scottish?
Yeah, both were Scottish. Both have passed away. My dad was a policeman and my mother was a nurse. And we, at the age of, I was only 2 or 3 I think, we came over under the £5 Presbyterian scheme, where you paid £5 for an adult and £3, I think, for a child, for a journey from Scotland to Mount Evelyn for us, in Lilydale.
For a new life?
For a new life.
It was a torrid childhood for you, wasn't it? I mean, you've gone halfway across the world for a new life. I mean, you're only 3 then and probably didn't remember much of that.
No, that's right.
But you get to 9 and your mother dies.
Yeah, no, she had some issues, my mother. She bought my mum and dad bought a milk bar that didn't work. They got into some financial debt. My mother had a couple of periods of sickness, mental sickness, and she eventually took her life at the age of 32.
She dies at 32. And an element you left out of that is that you saw her die, didn't you?
Yeah, no, she took a few pills, and my brother and I saw her do that. And she died in front of us in Dorcas Street, South Melbourne. Yeah.
I've heard you talk about this before and been amazed at how... Dispassionate's not the word, but how sort of realistic you are about this. I mean, it is a long time ago, you're only a kid, but the pain of that must still haunt you, does it?
Well, you never get over it. You know, you certainly... time is a healer, but you never completely get over it. You're scarred and the scar is there. Because when one of your parents die through that means, you know, you tend to ask a lot of questions yourself about, you know, why, and was it your fault, and why would you do that? And so that, you know, that's still, you know, we don't know the answer to that. Still don't know the answer to that.
You knew she was troubled though, didn't you?
Oh, you know, she was troubled. Yeah, she was a troubled woman. My mother and father were separated at the time, and she was going through some really tough issues. And she basically took a couple of pills, grabbed a swimming trophy from the mantelpiece above the fire and put it to her chest and lay down on the couch and passed away.
So she asked you to get that trophy, did she not?
She did. She asked me to bring it to her.
So there's a trophy that you've won as a 9-year-old?
As a 9-year-old, my first sports trophy, it was in swimming.
Yeah.
And she was there watching me during that carnival, as I remember. It was the first time I remember her attending any sports event that I'd participated in. And yeah, she asked me to get the trophy. I gave it to her. She put it to her heart and she died. She turned purple. She passed away.
And you're 9?
I'm 9.
Your brother? How old's your brother?
My brother's 11, and he rings up my mother's best friend. They come over and they pick up my mother. They take her to hospital, but she's dead on arrival.
Gee. You had a fractious relationship with your father too, didn't you? Eventually,
yeah, because when my mother died, we went and lived with my dad. And after I think it was about 12 months after my mother passed away, we went to live in Scotland with our great-grandmother, so we had a year with my dad. I was maybe 11 by then, and went to Scotland, lived with my great-grandmother, which was a wonderful experience in many ways. I could talk to you for hours about that.
But that was your mother's deathbed wish, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, yes.
She wrote a note?
She did, she wrote a note. I never got to read the note. Other people read it.
And she said she wanted her 2 boys to go back to her grandmother.
Yeah, that's right. And we did that. And that was a wonderful experience in many ways.
Was it?
Yeah, it was. I mean, living with a great-grandmother who's 82 and really can't look after you properly means you needed to become independent. And we did. And I used to kick an Aussie rules footy around in the park. I had no idea what that was, in Scotland when I was 10 or 11. And so that was tough. I got to learn a lot about minorities and you know, how being treated poorly by other races and, you know, that sort of stuff. So, and that sort of has made or has been part of my character now, I think.
You've said to me before that when you did come back to Australia, despite the fact that you enjoyed your time back in Scotland, you came back an angry boy, an angry teenager.
Yeah, I did. I was angry most of my youth. I took it out. I became a boxer for a while, but I was angry. My dad got married again whilst we were in Scotland. That didn't help matters. And I went back to what I thought was a very, you know, separated household.
So you're 16, Cookie, you're living in Box Hill, you're living with your father. There's another fight, and I'm not painting you as being the odd man out here. Most of us at 16 would fight with our parents, but you've only got one parent. You leave home.
Yes,
you're
I do.
in year 11,
I
you leave home and you make your way in the big world. How did you do that?
Oh, look, it was tough. I had a really close friend called David Allen. The late David Allen. His mother took me in. And so for 2 years, I went to school. I worked at nights at Safeways, packing shelves. I played for Hawthorn Reserves, so I went from packing shelves to Hawthorn Reserves game and played footy, and I made enough money to make ends meet through my leaving certificate and my matriculation.
That's a good effort, that.
Yeah.
To do year 12
Year 11 and 12 successfully, that's true. I think it was a good effort.
You had a couple of years at Hawthorn, exclusively in the reserves.
Yes.
Now, the ultimate accolade for the football was John Kennedy said to me, he didn't think you were overly endowed with talent, but he said you were too brave for your own good.
Yeah.
Kennedy wouldn't say that about many people.
No, probably not. No, I was known for having lots and lots of courage and getting injured a lot and going into packs and doing those things. And certainly that was the reason I was on the senior list at Hawthorn. It certainly wasn't my skill. I was very, very slow. In fact, some people would say that I couldn't play. and they're half right.
Now, Cookie, you know we don't have officials on this show, but you did play at senior level. You played 4 games for the mighty Melbourne Football Club in 1977.
77, was it? Right, with Bobby Skilton, the coach.
That's right.
A great bloke.
Yeah. And not unlike, we talk so much about Jack Watts being thrown in at the deep end on the Queen's birthday weekend. Your first game was against Collingwood on Queen's birthday.
It was against Collingwood, and I played on Wade Richardson.
You played on Wade, did you?
And I had a tagging job on him.
Tagging back then?
Yeah, a tag, and I tagged Wayne through the middle, first half. I thought I did pretty well. But I didn't do that well second half. He got away a bit second half, But that was a memorable experience for me to play in front of, I think it was something like 70 or 80,000 people. Yeah. First game.
Yeah,
and for a bloke who couldn't play.
Cookie, you take over as CEO at West Coast in 1990, the first year of the national competition by name. At the end of 1998, you leave abruptly. The team hadn't missed the finals. We're a long way away over on the East Coast, but something went amiss, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. It did, and you know, you learn in life that you know, if you take your chairman on, you usually come off second best. And
that's what happened.
That's pretty much what happened.
Chairman was Murray McHenry.
Yeah, no, he and I, we had our differences, and he wanted the club to go in one direction, and I think he was quite unhappy about the way I was managing the club in another direction.
So when you leave, did forces within the football club start a smear campaign against you?
Yeah, just before I left, there was a couple of headlines, which didn't necessarily reflect the words in the story, but the headline was, you know, McHenry has dirt file on Cook.
Really?
Yeah.
And did it exist? Was there a dirt file?
I don't know. I've never known to this day.
Did you sue them?
No, I didn't sue them. No, not at all.
Did you leave on bad terms?
I think with some people, yes. With Murray and a few of the directors, possibly with one or two of the staff. Yeah, probably.
What about your relationship with Mick? Mick Malthouse was the coach during your entire time at West Coast. You weren't happy with Mick, were you, in 1998 when he left Woosha Worsfold out of the first final at the MCG?
No, that was a difference of a difference of how we saw that all happening. You know, Mick as coach had every right to do what he wanted to do with the team, and he dropped John Worsfold, and that's what coaches do. I had this. I was a friend of John's. I had grown to love him and respect him for the way he led, and I probably was aggrieved in that I felt Mick could have at least given me the courtesy of saying we're going to drop the captain of this football club, but he didn't. And look, I'm probably in the wrong more than I'm in the right here. But I admit to that.
When did you confront Mick about that?
I don't think I ever did.
Didn't you?
No, I don't think I did.
So how do we know this story?
Well, I think I made the comment publicly that I was a bit disappointed. Yeah. Oh, look, Mick was a wonderful coach. He was a player's coach. Didn't manage upwards because he probably felt he didn't need to, you know.
Manage upwards means...
Yeah. The relationship with the board or the CEOs and those people.
Yep.
Mick managed his team, which he saw as his core purpose, which it was, and probably didn't spend a lot of time with the other things, you know. But he was a player's coach, and he was very, very successful and a good coach. My definition of a great coach is, you know, someone who actually gets involved in a lot of other areas of the club and does it genuinely and with interest and inspiration. And Chris Scott does that marvellously, you know. But Mick tended to stay in his patch.
Frank Costa was the president. He lured you to Geelong after you finished at West Coast. He said to you he wanted you to help him change the culture at Geelong. What did he mean?
When I went for an interview with Frank out at his Derrimut office at the time with the Costa Group, he had on in the reception this sign, and the sign said, "Character first, talent second." And that's how he lived his life. And that's how he wanted me to run Geelong Football Club.
Did you believe that? Did you agree with that?
I did, because it was natural to my life. I wasn't a naturally talented person. I think I actually got where I got to through perseverance, resilience, and a few things like that. And Frank is the same. And Frank is a great believer that you recruit for a character and you train the skills, pretty much. And so that's what he does. And so transferring that philosophy into Geelong, it was team first from the beginning. It was values first, good values first. And it was, which is really important, this one is, you know, character is as important as natural ability. And for the first time at Geelong in a long time, I believe, that we went down that path. You know, Geelong, when I arrived, was full of individual talent, very talented individuals. But as a team, I think it was really debatable as to whether we performed well as a team for a long time. I remember going to a clinic, a kids' clinic, where there's about 1,000 kids at Cardinia Park. And I reckon 950 of them at least had number 5 on their back. And I remember when I first arrived, Gary Ablett Sr. just retired, and I got all these letters saying we need a monument, a trophy for Gary Ablett here, or Gary Hocking. And so it was placing, worshipping individualism.
Cookie, you get to Geelong for the 1999 season. The club's turnover is about 15 to 16 million? 16
million, yeah.
Okay, and there's a debt of about 7 million, correct?
Yeah, there's a bank interest-bearing debt of 7 and there's liabilities of 10. Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, it must have, I mean, I know what happened with the debt. You very cleverly negotiated a release with the banks, did you not?
Yeah, well, when you say I did, the club did, and it was led by a few of the directors more than me.
Did they waive the debt entirely, or did you pay them something?
No, we owed $6 million to a bank, and we basically offered 55 cents in the dollar. So we owed 6 and paid about 3.1 or 2.
Okay. And then what followed was 14 consecutive years of profits.
Yes, that was... The business model had really worked. And I basically had the West Coast Eagles business model that I transferred into the template into Geelong.
If you fill Skilled Stadium up for a game, which you do most times...
Simmons Stadium.
Sorry, Cookie. Simmons Stadium. Is that worth $750,000 to you each time, is that?
Yeah, it is, yeah. Net.
You net that?
Yeah.
2007, Cookie, the Cats break the premiership drought.
Yep.
Billy Brownless sat in that chair about a month ago and talked about the tears in the race when you realised that you'd won the flag. Yeah. You were with him.
Yeah, that was a...
It must have been a highly emotional experience.
Oh, it was. It was an amazing experience. Bill, I've never seen Billy cry, and so he broke down. Oh, that's Frank. Yeah. That's in the stands. 07, we've got up. 10 minutes to go, because even though we're 100 points up, we didn't shake hands until there was 10 minutes to go. There was people who were still at 3/4 time saying nervous about us because we hadn't won for 44 years. Yeah. But that's my favourite, actually.
Is it your favourite? Is that the most emotional moment in your time in footy?
It would have to be, yeah. It would have to be. I mean, the first premiership of the West Coast in '92 was pretty emotional. The first time we took the cup out of Victoria, that had its moments. They all have their moments. Yep. But that one's a beauty because It was 8 years in the making. When I arrived in 1999, you know, the club was in real trouble. And to consider where it was and to win a premiership 8 years later, in my opinion, I know it's not an independent opinion, but in my opinion was unbelievable. And to win 3 was, unheard of. If someone had said to me in 1999, you're going to make 14 profits a run, you're going to win 3 premierships and you're going to win 80% of your games after 2007, I'd say, mate, you're crazy.
Yeah. Well, we can condense that time frame. I sat next to you at a Geelong Melbourne game.
Yeah.
You were in the middle of a review that at that time, I must say, I think it was 2006, I thought Bomber was gone.
Yep.
You had the weight of the world on your shoulders. There's no question about that. You were glum. I got the impression you didn't know which way you're going to turn next. Is that a fair assessment?
I was tired, and had my time again, I wouldn't have put my hand up to be the only reviewer of the entire footy department.
Well, it caused you and Bomber to fall out.
I would have spread the problem.
Yeah, but you and Bomber fell out over that, didn't you?
Yeah, we fell out over that for a period of time. Yeah, we did, yeah.
Was he nearly gone?
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt. He knows that, yeah.
He knows
That's nothing new there, yeah. It was probably a time he was going with the board, but we just didn't have a meeting, you know.
Really?
Yeah, there's probably a time, yeah.
And honesty here, I think you're an honest man.
Yeah.
Did you believe at any particular moment during that review that you had to send the guillotine down on Bomber, you yourself?
There was a period through the review that I felt that could have been the outcome. The message I got about Mark was that this guy is a great coach.
That was what the leadership group was saying?
This is a great coach, but he's lost his way.
Okay.
He's not doing one-on-ones anymore. He's actually not coaching as much anymore because he was tired. I mean, he was tired. He was tired.
We're tired of what?
Tired of work. Coaches work long hours, mate. They're up most nights watching videos, and he was also going through his
marriage.
Dare I say this?
Marriage breakdown.
His separation, and that would have created a lot of problems.
So when the board finally decides that you're going to go forward with Bomber, did you then sit him down and tell him?
No. Before we sat down as a board, I sat down with Bomber. And we had a chat, and the message was change or leave.
Yeah.
You need to change, otherwise you've got to leave.
Wow. To which he said?
He was a bit upset with that.
A bit upset, was he?
I hope you can laugh about it now. We're friends now. That's not the important thing. He said, let me think about it. I'll come back to you. But he went back to Frank and said, I'd like to coach. And so the recommendation to the board was that he continue, that we put a lot more support staff around him. The appointment of Neil Baum came out of that recommendation. There was a great alignment between those guys. You know, the interesting thing about all of this is people think the review was the catalyst for the premiership. And that wasn't. The players were. They were ready. They were ready for a change. They were ready for success. They were hungry and they were mad and they were angry. And irrespective of the review or not, in my opinion, I think the club would have performed pretty well in 07.
After the break, Cookie, how close did you get to going to North Melbourne? A couple of years ago, Cookie, North Melbourne Football Club came to you and offered you their CEO's role.
Yes.
And a big bucket of money. Why didn't you go?
Because of my relationships with people at Geelong. I'm not necessarily a money man. I think we all need a bit of money, but it doesn't drive me.
At one point, as I understand it, you were a yes to North.
Yeah, I actually said to James Brayshaw, I was at the airport at Melbourne going to the Himalayas, and I said, if I feel the same way when I get back, I'll be with you. I actually said that to him. But I changed my mind when I was in the Himalayas on a mountain.
Gary Ablett Jr. Departed the GFC during your time as CEO, because it's still going.
Yeah.
Did you guys condition yourselves to sort of say, look, he's going and we can't afford him?
Yeah.
Or did you fight to the death to keep him?
Probably a bit of both. We end up offering Gary $1 million a year near the end. We didn't at the start.
Okay.
And because, as our highest paid player other than Gary was on about 500, maybe 600 max. So, to do that, we were actually going outside our bands, But we said, look, we'll get our money back, marketing-wise and so
even though
forth.
it's threw everyone else's wages out of kilter?
That's right.
Okay.
We were going to go down the path of it, but no more. No more than that.
So you were prepared to offer him $1 million a year for 5 years?
And we did, but the offer he got was much larger than that.
So that $1 million that you've had on ice since then now goes to Paddy Dangerfield?
I cut it out. You've thrown that one in. That's a red herring.
Oh, it's a red herring,
you know,
is it?
The AFL rules don't allow you to talk to anyone until the end of the year if they're contracted, Michael. So no matter how you are, what question you ask me here, I'll just refer back to the AFL rules.
So you can't have Steve Hocking and Stephen Wells going to Paddy's management and talking to them?
No, we're not allowed. We're not allowed to make an offer.
Could they talk to him about his interest in perhaps relocating to Geelong?
They could, but they wouldn't. Do you believe me?
Well, I'm prepared to cop that, Cookie, but
right, okay.
you know whether I believe you or not.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, talking about your staying with the player group, you are very keen on a word called transiting, which means players who have been great servants of the footy club being ushered out in the best possible way.
Yes. Yeah.
You've got 5 guys who are 30 plus and have been warriors for this footy club.
Yeah.
How are you going to handle them at the end of this year?
Yeah, it's really difficult. It always is. But the abduction process or the transiting process started a year ago with all these people.
How so?
Well, the coach talks to them and says, this is what might happen.
Okay.
Start thinking, start doing, start planning. Who knows? And as the year progresses, depending on their form, they get other feedback. And I think it would be fair to say that the 5 players you're probably talking about all know where they sit.
Johnson's one of those. Johnson's been a favourite of all of us.
Yes.
We've all loved him, but the Geelong people adore him.
They love him,
Yeah. And again, you've said this before, all players think they've got one more year than they've actually got, right?
Just about.
Yeah. Okay.
Tom Harley didn't, I don't think.
Okay, so Tommy was ready?
A few exceptions.
All right, so
yeah.
If in fact Stevie Johnson is told that his time's up, that's the coach's decision entirely, alone?
No, it's a list management decision, and that's made up of it's driven by the coach and Stephen Wells, Steve Hocking, and a few others. I'm on that too. I don't think I play a big role anymore in that area, but the others do. So it's their decision, and we work out not only what the contract should be, what the strategy and tactics should be, and they're implemented mainly by the coach. Unless it's contract, and it's implemented, of course, by Stephen Wells and Steve Hocking. And
does the CEO, does he factor in the merchandising value of that person, or the possible effect on the morale of the supporter group?
No, not always. Certainly the latter. I would do that more often in terms of how the supporters would see this, but it can't be the overriding factor.
No.
Yeah. The overriding factor is whether the person has the ability to play well next year.
I want to ask you about a bloke whose future is the subject of some speculation at the moment. You couldn't possibly let Stephen Motlop go other than for an extraordinary offer from elsewhere.
Absolutely.
Well, how come he's not re-signed?
Because he probably had an extraordinary offer from elsewhere.
Do you believe that to be the case?
I don't know for sure. I believe it.
He's a star, isn't he?
He is a star. Let me think about that. He is a very good player.
Yeah.
He's not a great player yet.
Okay. Will he be at Geelong next year?
I think he will be.
Cookie, recently the Herald Sun linked Geelong and Stephen Dank on the front page of the paper. That's not an association that you would have welcomed, is it?
No, not at all. No, we were very disappointed in that. I think it was cheap journalism, to be honest. We've been investigated by the AFL, and so have a few other clubs, and we've got the all clear.
As I understand it, there were overtures made to Geelong about a meeting, and Stephen Hocking did in fact meet with Stephen Dank.
He did, yes, about using his services. Yep.
Okay, and decided not to go on with it.
Decided not to go on with it, that's right. What followed that is sometime after that we actually ordered some Actavegan, which is legal, that drug through a company that he is a director of. And we got that Actavegan and it was administered by the doctors. It was ordered by the doctors, administered by the doctors.
On a long-term basis or just one-off?
Just one batch.
Okay.
One batch. And so, that's what we're guilty of. And it's ridiculous that is on the front page of the Herald Sun 2 days in a row.
Do you believe that the premierships have been tainted by this?
No. I think people understand where our position is. I would be extremely disappointed if people felt genuinely that we were taking high performance drugs to win the premiership.
Okay. Now you're in,
because it's just not true. It's so far from the truth.
Your reputation at club level is huge. You know that. You're a life member of the AFL. Yeah. Premierships at 2 clubs. When Andrew Demetriou took the job as AFL CEO, yeah, you were right in the mix for that job.
I believe so. Yeah.
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 Were you disappointed that you didn't get it?
I was. Yeah, I think I was. Andrew was a late inclusion.
From the Players Association?
Yeah. He entered into the fray.
No, he'd been the footy manager, hadn't he? Hadn't he been the footy ops manager?
No, he was the AFLPA CEO. But what I'm saying is he actually didn't apply for the job. He was asked to apply after people were interviewed. Mm. That's my understanding. Okay. So I felt, he jumped the queue a bit.
Yeah.
Having said that, I think he did a great job.
Yeah.
Okay. But at the time, I was, I was a little bit bereaved. The second time we were interviewed, when Gil McLachlan got the role, there was 2 others interviewed. I was one of them.
Brendan Gale.
Yeah, and myself. And that was a really strange period.
But you didn't go in. You didn't actually attack that job, did you?
No, I didn't prepare properly.
You didn't?
No, I didn't. I should have, but I didn't.
Well, is it true? Now, some things leak out of high places, Brian.
Yeah.
Is it true that a member of the AFL Commission said to you, after you asked about your 10th question, that she said to you, "We asked the questions here, Brian"?
Yeah, that's true. I think it might have been in jest. I'm not sure. Because, I went down the path of saying, I've been critical of the AFL because I don't think they actually have an agreed mission or a vision or a set of values, dare I say. And so I asked that question. I sort of said, well, look, I think good leadership is about getting people to have a shared mission, vision and values, and you can bring them along the journey, And I said, what's the AFL's? Tell me what your mission is and what your vision is and what your values are, what you stand for. What are the behaviours you want other clubs to show? And there was a lot of silence.
Hey, mate, you've done a great job. I think the fact that you're the only person that's actually survived the first 25 years of the national competition speaks for itself, and the 5 premierships, well, we need to say no more. So, great to see you. I've broken a tradition here of not having officials on, but I'm glad we did. Thanks, Cookie.
I might be the first and last, Mike. Thanks, mate.